Welcome back to AI Unraveled, your daily strategic briefing on the business impact of artificial intelligence. It is Thursday, January 15th, 2026. Apple has made its choice. It will use Google's brain, but hide the logo. New reports reveal that the Gemini-powered Siri will be a white label experience, keeping Google's branding completely invisible to iPhone users. It is the ultimate frenemy move. But that is not the only power play today. Meta is pivoting from the metaverse to the megawatt, launching a massive new infrastructure division to build gigawatt-scale data centers. And in a geopolitical twist, China, not the US, has blocked Nvidia's latest chips at the border, leaving $54 billion in hardware stranded. Also today, Google makes vertical video easy for creators, Matthew McConaughey trademarks his own face, and the Pentagon officially drafts Grok. But before we dive into the rundown, are you drowning in dense legal text? Gemini is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page healthcare or energy mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Whether you are navigating Bill C-27, Canada, or the CMS 0057F Interoperability Rule, USA, our AI agents decode the liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamind.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Now, let's unravel the news.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is your strategic briefing, and we're here to cut through the noise, all the noise, on the really big shifts happening in AI.
And there is so much noise. If you feel like the news cycle is just moving at the speed of light, you're not wrong.
Right. If you're an investor trying to price in tomorrow's infrastructure, or maybe you're a developer choosing a model that's going to dominate the application layer.
You're dealing with a legitimate information velocity problem.
Exactly. And that velocity, it forces executives, it forces engineers to make these massive, decade-defining bets.
All based on incomplete information. So our mission today really is to give you that strategic shortcut. We're distilling the day's torrent of information, all the key reports, government announcements, scientific breakthroughs into, well, high-signal, actionable insights.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our focus today is on 3 huge interconnected battlegrounds. First up, we're dissecting the application layer,
Which is really being driven by this massive Apple and Google consumer alliance.
Yeah, and it tells us so much about where consumer AI is going, especially with personal data and privacy, and, what Google's big comeback actually looks like.
Then second, we're shifting to the physical world. We're calling it the Gigawatt infrastructure war.
This one is fascinating. We'll contrast Meta's absolutely staggering scaling bet
We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars in energy.
against Microsoft's more calculated, defensive community-first strategy. It's really designed to handle the public backlash against AI's resource demands.
And finally, we'll get into the sharpening edges of geopolitical friction over compute.
This includes how China is intentionally blocking the very Nvidia chips they desperately need.
And the really stunning news that the Pentagon is adopting Elon Musk's Grok model.
It's a dense agenda, so let's just jump straight in. Section 1, Google's resurgence and this white label partnership that has completely redefined the application landscape. Yeah. I think we have to start with a little historical reflection here. Because if you just go back 1 year, the whole narrative around Google was, well, it was one of existential crisis.
Oh, completely. It wasn't just competitors nipping at their heels. The fundamental structure of their business felt like it was under threat.
And that's the critical starting point, right? Google built this multi-trillion-dollar empire on being the front door to the internet.
The gateway. And then generative AI, first with OpenAI's ChatGPT, then you had Anthropic, Perplexity. They challenged that core assumption.
The idea that if an LLM can just give you the answer directly, why would you ever click a search link?
And if search traffic drops, their advertising revenue, the engine that funds everything else, is in serious jeopardy. That was the fear. That's what, temporarily cratered their stock.
The market was pricing in this fundamental erosion of their main cash cow. They were seen as being disrupted in their one core competency. But wow, that narrative has totally flipped.
It's a dramatic reversal. And the inflection point, without a doubt, was the launch of Gemini 3.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that it was fast. It immediately showed this multimodal superiority in advanced reasoning.
And our sources now are all confirming it. Gemini 3 is widely considered the best foundational AI model out there.
The market share data just tells the story. It's a technical knockout. ChatGPT, which was the undisputed king, saw its market share nearly halved by the end of last year.
This wasn't a slow decline.
No, this is a swift, aggressive repossession of territory.
And the competitive advantage here, it's not just the algorithm. You've pointed this out before. It's their full stack control.
That is the ultimate differentiator. When we say full stack, we mean they have control over every single layer of the AI value chain. Most companies, even OpenAI, rely heavily on external hardware.
Nvidia's GPUs usually.
Right, and they build their models on top of that. But Google is vertically integrated. We now know that Gemini 3 was trained exclusively on Google's own custom silicon, their tensor processing units, or TPUs.
Okay, let's pause on that TPU advantage for a second. It's highly technical, but it's strategically so critical.
Well, think of it like this. NVIDIA's H100s are amazing general-purpose supercomputers. They're excellent for a lot of tasks.
But Google's TPUs are custom-designed silicon.
Tailored specifically for the kind of massive matrix math and parallel processing you need for training these huge transformer models like Gemini. When you design the chip and the model architecture at the same time,
you get a level of optimization that nobody else can match.
Exactly. External chip users just can't get there.
Okay.
I mean, even a close rival like Anthropic's Claude 4.5, which is highly competitive, still relied on Google's TPUs for training. Google is now really the only company that controls the silicon, the foundational models, and the applications that run on them.
And this confidence, it's directly reflected in their financials.
Absolutely. The market priced this in very quickly. Google's stock up 65% over the past year, and crucially, their market cap crossed that monumental $4 trillion line.
Making them only the fourth company in history to do that.
After Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft. But the comparison with Nvidia is where it gets really telling about Google's strategic depth.
What do you mean?
Well, Alphabet's valuation is second only to Nvidia in the AI space right now. But if you look at the fundamentals, the things that matter for long-term health, like revenue and operating income,
Google is vastly superior.
by a huge margin. They generate far more sustainable cash flow from all their existing businesses. The market is finally pricing in Google's long-term, self-sufficient full-stack value and doing it way more aggressively than it was even 6 months ago.
So the narrative of Google being disrupted.
It's dead. It's been replaced by the narrative of Google being the most strategically integrated player in the game. And now that that foundational layer is secure, Google's whole focus is shifted to winning the application layer. That's where the real commercial value gets unlocked.
Which brings us to this new personal intelligence beta feature. This focus on utility seems critical for moving the industry past those speculative bubble fears.
It really is. It's about stabilization. Look, we've had AI assistants before, but this is positioned as a qualitative leap forward.
So what defines this personal intelligence? What's the core innovation?
The main thing is its ability to reason across your siloed digital life without you telling it to. Today, if you want AI to help you, you have to upload a specific document or point it to a specific email.
You have to do the work of connecting the dots.
Exactly. Personal intelligence, which is rolling out to Gemini Pro and Ultra subscribers in the US first, connects across your Gmail, your photos, your search history, YouTube.
Yeah.
And it does the cognitive work of finding those connections automatically.
That immediately raises some serious privacy questions, obviously. But let's stick with the utility for a second. How does reasoning across my data actually translate into, hyper-personal help for me as a user?
Okay, let's use some concrete examples from our sources. Imagine you just got back from a long road trip. You drove through multiple states, maybe some rougher terrain.
Right.
The system can look through your photos, recognize the context and location, say mountains or unpaved roads, and then proactively suggest, completely unprompted, that based on your recent activity, you should probably look into buying some all-weather tires.
That's utility derived from visual inference. It's not just text.
Precisely. Or, here's another one, a common, frustrating, real-world scenario. You need some obscure piece of personal data, and you need it right now.
Oh, I know this one.
The classic administrative headache. You're filling out an insurance form or DMV paperwork, and you realize you have no idea what your license plate number is.
And you spend the next 10 minutes scrolling through thousands of photos trying to find one where the plate is visible.
Instead of that, the AI assistant can just instantly pull that number directly from a picture in your photos library, just because it indexed and reasoned across the content of every photo you have.
That moves the AI from a general knowledge provider to...
That absolutely indispensable personal administrative agent.
Yeah, that level of integration makes the value proposition undeniable. It totally shifts the conversation from can AI summarize an article to Can AI manage the logistics of my life?
But that massive data access is a foundational risk.
Yeah.
And the industry knows it. And that tension, that utility versus privacy, is exactly what makes the new Apple partnership so incredibly strategic. This is probably the most significant strategic alliance of the quarter. Apple is integrating a customized version of Google's Gemini to power the next generation of Siri.
For Google, this is the ultimate validation of their LLM's quality. I mean, Apple is paying top dollar for their intelligence.
But the reported terms of the deal are what's really interesting, the white label strategy. Apple will customize this version of Gemini and actively remove all Google branding from the user experience.
Okay, so why? Why go to all that effort to strip away the brand name? Is it just corporate ego?
I think it's far more strategic than ego, although brand integrity is definitely part of it. Apple is famously obsessive about maintaining a unified user experience.
They don't want you to feel like you're leaving the Apple ecosystem.
Exactly. They don't want their users to feel they're accessing some third-party service. They want the AI's capabilities to feel like seamless, deep integration with their iOS. The moment a Google logo pops up, the user perceives a handoff.
It breaks the illusion.
Right. By removing the branding, Apple maintains the illusion, or the reality, depending on your view, of complete control and internal development.
And that desire for control had a non-negotiable prerequisite: privacy. This whole deal only works because of Apple's private cloud compute architecture.
That is the critical safeguard. It's what unlocks this entire partnership. The reports confirm the Gemini-powered Siri will run on Apple devices and on Apple's private cloud compute. This is where Apple draws the line in the sand.
So the key takeaway for consumers, for investors, is that Google will not have access to user data?
Correct. Google will not have access to the data processed through this new Siri. Apple is effectively leasing Google's powerful model, but running it securely within its own heavily guarded digital perimeter.
Which maintains Apple's core value proposition of privacy while instantly upgrading the utility of its assistant.
Exactly.
So practically speaking, what does this look like for the user? Are we finally moving past those infuriating moments where Siri just fails to answer a simple question?
We are, hopefully, entering the post. Here's what I found on the web era. Siri is expected to operate like a true LLM. It'll answer questions directly, synthesize information, provide immediate utility without just defaulting to a list of links.
Which keeps the user inside the Apple ecosystem.
Right. It drastically reduces friction. And the leap in contextual understanding seems to be what they're most excited about. You mentioned the example of identifying contacts.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So this shows a genuine advance in common sense human-level reasoning. The updated Siri is designed to handle ambiguous requests that currently trip it up. For instance, if you ask Siri to message mother, but you've never formally labeled that contact card as mother.
Maybe it's just a first name or a nickname.
Right. The AI will search through your message history, identify the contact you interact with most frequently in that parental context, and correctly tag them for the operation.
So it's not relying on database labels. It's inferring human relationships from communication patterns.
Exactly. It's the difference between an assistant that follows rules and an assistant that understands context. For a developer, that signals a massive opportunity. For investors, the takeaway is clear. This validates Google's intelligence and reinforces Apple's commitment that privacy and superior AI are not mutually exclusive.
Provided you control the infrastructure. And that requirement controlling the infrastructure is the perfect pivot point, because scaling that level of intelligence for billions of users requires a staggering physical footprint. We're moving from the digital battleground to the physical realm. We're entering the infrastructure wars. The second you transition from the application layer to the physical infrastructure, the whole conversation becomes about power, literal electrical power.
And we have two titans, Meta and Microsoft, taking diametrically opposed approaches to solving this compute bottleneck.
Let's start with Meta. Mark Zuckerberg's aggressive push is being called the Gigawatt Gambit, and that feels pretty accurate.
It's a gamble because the scale is just unprecedented. Meta announced Meta Compute, a massive, top-level initiative focused entirely on building AI infrastructure at a pace, well, a pace that borders on unbelievable.
Their whole bet is that compute scale is the only moat that matters.
That's it. Unbelievable scale needs hard numbers, so let's get into the commitment they're making.
Okay.
We're talking about adding tens of gigawatts of capacity this decade, with projections going out to securing hundreds of gigawatts over the long term.
Okay, to put that in context, a single gigawatt is roughly the output of a standard nuclear power plant.
So Meta is planning to build, in essence, the equivalent energy infrastructure to power several major cities.
Just for AI?
Just for AI training and inference. And this isn't just a budget line item, it's physical construction.
This is concrete and steel.
Absolutely. Meta has publicly committed $600 billion in U.S. infrastructure spending by 2028 alone. This is real estate, construction, transformers, transmission lines. The idea of renting a brain is now translating into building a physical utility-scale data center brain that rivals small nations in its energy demands.
And they're locking in their future supply, hedging against the volatility we've seen in energy prices.
They're strategically insulating themselves. They're securing 20-year nuclear power agreements for their key data center hubs.
Yeah.
That is a huge critical hedge.
Because energy stability and cost are the #1 bottleneck for the entire industry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Locking in nuclear deals gives them guaranteed, long-term, low-carbon power at predictable prices. It gives them a strategic advantage that competitors who just buy energy wholesale will struggle to match.
But this massive reallocation of resources has required some painful organizational shifts inside Meta, specifically with the old metaverse vision.
And that is the crucial investor insight right there. This infrastructure push is happening at the same time as reported major layoffs in Meta's. Well, let's call them their former priority divisions.
Reality Labs, the metaverse and VR division.
They're facing an expected 10% cut in workforce. So the capital commitment isn't new money. It's a brutal, ruthless reallocation of existing capital away from the VR dream.
It's a pivot.
It's a massive pivot. The company is actively divesting from that highly expensive vision to explicitly prioritize compute scale. Zuckerberg is placing the single largest strategic bet in the industry that raw compute capability will be the defining competitive advantage for the next decade. If you're an investor, that's the clearest signal you can get.
Okay, so Meta's approach is brute force scale. Now let's pivot to Microsoft, which is taking an approach that looks almost opposite. They're adopting a good neighbor defense. What's the pressure they're reacting to?
Microsoft's move is a direct response to a massive and growing social and political crisis. This AI infrastructure boom has become highly divisive in the communities where data centers are being built.
We've seen major PR backlash over soaring local power bills, where residents feel like they're subsidizing tech giants, and serious water supply concerns, especially during droughts.
And this isn't just local grumbling. The sources show this has escalated to the national level.
Right. It's hitting them in places like Arizona, Virginia, Ireland, but also nationally. Senators are questioning resource consumption. President Trump explicitly demanded tech companies pay their own way on energy.
The optics are terrible. These massive opaque buildings sucking up local resources while residential customers see their bills spike.
So Microsoft is trying to reverse that perception with their community-first AI infrastructure plan. Let's break down the key commitments here.
Their plan is an explicit contrast to that build-at-all-costs mentality. First, they're addressing the most politically charged issue, energy costs. Microsoft is pledging to ask utilities to charge them rates high enough to cover the full cost of powering their data centers.
How does that actually change things?
Traditionally, when a huge consumer like a data center comes into a market, it strains the grid. The upgrades needed often get spread across the entire rate base.
Meaning residential customers end up subsidizing the tech giant.
Inadvertently, yes. By asking the utility to charge rates that reflect the true cost of their demand, including all the upgrades, Microsoft is internalizing that cost. They're basically saying, we'll pay the premium so our consumption doesn't directly affect your light bill.
That's a fundamental shift, but the water issue is often more visceral for communities.
It is. Data centers need immense amounts of water for cooling. So Microsoft is committing to a 40% reduction in water use intensity by 2030. And more importantly, for new facilities, they're explicitly using closed-loop cooling systems.
Explain what that means.
A closed-loop system is one where the cooling water is recycled and reused constantly within the data center, rather than being drawn from an external source and evaporated.
So it drastically minimizes the amount of fresh, local drinking water needed.
Exactly. It's an attempt to eliminate that political tension of the data center competing with residents during a drought.
And finally, they're addressing the local economic impact.
Yes. By pledging to pay full property taxes without seeking the huge tax breaks developers often demand. And they're announcing programs to train locals for the high-wage construction and operational jobs these centers create.
I have to be a little skeptical here. This good neighbor strategy sounds great in a press release, but is it enough? If Meta is committing $600 billion and is willing to accept friction for scale, doesn't this make Microsoft's Azure cloud less competitive?
That is the sharp edge of this decision. You're absolutely right. Internalizing the full cost of energy does raise their operating expenses compared to a competitor who negotiates subsidized rates.
So what's the long-term bet?
They're making a long-term strategic bet that the social license to operate will become the ultimate competitive advantage. They anticipate the political backlash will grow so severe that governments and utilities will eventually mandate these kinds of pay-your-own-way costs anyway.
So they're getting ahead of the regulatory curve.
Precisely. They're mitigating future political risk, even if it raises their short-term costs. Meta is betting on the technology race. Microsoft is betting on the governance race. For an investor, you now have to weigh Meta's advantage in sheer capacity against Microsoft's advantage in mitigating future political instability.
And speaking of regulatory instability, let's transition to Section 3, where geopolitical tensions are actively hardening supply chains. Our sources reported an incredible development this week, what we're calling the China-Nvidia paradox. This story is so counterintuitive because it involves China blocking the one thing its tech giants desperately need.
This is a textbook example of long-term strategic planning overriding short-term economic gains. On January 14th, China's customs officials formally blocked shipments of Nvidia H200 chips.
And the crucial detail here is that they did this after the U.S. Commerce Department had already approved the export of these chips.
Right. The U.S. government opened the faucet a little bit, and China slammed the door shut. This is a deliberate act of sovereign economic policy.
Not just a logistical bottleneck. And the scale of the economic friction is enormous.
It's huge. Chinese tech giants like Alibaba, ByteDance, Tencent, they've collectively placed over $54 billion in back orders. That's nearly 2 million H200 chips.
It's years of pent-up demand.
And they need this compute to stay globally competitive in AI.
The reason they need the H200s is that the domestic alternatives are just not there yet.
Not without a substantial performance hit. The Nvidia H200, even in its restricted form, still outperforms the leading domestic alternative, Huawei's Ascend 910C, by 32% in processing power.
And a critical 50% increase in memory bandwidth. Let's explain why that memory bandwidth difference matters so much for developers.
When you're training a massive foundational model, the memory bandwidth determines how quickly you can feed the datasets into the processor. A 50% deficit translates directly into much longer training times.
Which means higher energy costs, longer time to market,
and a persistent competitive lag against rivals running on Nvidia architecture. The technical hit is really significant.
So they desperately need the performance, yet they are blocking the supply. What's the paradoxical reason here?
China has clearly calculated that long-term stability and self-sufficiency are more valuable than short-term performance gains. They've decided that being dependent on a potentially hostile foreign supplier, the U.S. is too massive a strategic liability.
So they are intentionally forcing domestic adoption of their own slower chip.
Yes. Specifically, the Huawei Ascend 910C. This is the supply chain hostage situation you mentioned.
They're refusing to be held hostage.
Precisely. For the thousands of AI developers in China, this is a terrible choice. They have to weigh performance, the superior but unstable H200 against stability, the slower but domestically controlled Ascend 910C.
This guarantees that, for now, Chinese models will start at a performance disadvantage.
But it prioritizes national security. For global investors, the implication is that continued intentional instability in the high-end chip market is now the permanent baseline. Shifting from economic warfare to actual military adoption, we have official confirmation that the Department of Defense is integrating a highly novel and somewhat controversial AI, xAI's Grok.
And that confirmation came from the very top. U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth announced the deployment across Pentagon systems later this month. This means Elon Musk is now firmly established as a major U.S. defense contractor.
And he's in direct competition with Google AI, which is also heavily integrated. The specifics of the deployment are what make this so significant. Grok will operate at Impact Level 5, or IL5 security standards.
For our listeners, IL5 allows for handling controlled unclassified information, CUI, so sensitive mission-critical data.
Exactly. Intelligence reports, planning documents. This is not some casual pilot program. This is deep integration into secure operational workflows.
And the scale of the rollout to 3 million users suggests a systemic shift in how the Pentagon plans to use AI.
Absolutely. The intention is to embed this AI into the decision-making architecture of the entire department, from logistics to rapid intelligence synthesis.
So how will Grok actually function? What unique value does it bring compared to, say, a more traditional defense contractor's AI?
Grok is being embedded directly into operational and planning systems, and the unique value proposition lies in its data source. The system will use real-time global signals ingested from open-source intelligence and social data scraped directly from the X platform.
So while other systems rely on classified satellite imagery or human intelligence, Grok provides a dynamic, rapidly updating view of global sentiment and events.
Correct. It provides a real-time, ground-level signal that traditional intelligence can often miss or lag behind. In this fast-moving geopolitical environment, the ability of an AI to ingest and reason over chaotic high-velocity data is a critical requirement.
This validates Grok's core thesis, even if the model itself has been seen as more speculative.
It does. The strategic implication is clear. The DoD is prioritizing speed, scale, and access to chaotic real-time data. And this move formally pits two enormous private sector forces, Google's enterprise AI and xAI's social AI, in competition for the most high-value government contracts.
It creates a powerful competitive dynamic that forces both vendors to innovate faster.
The Pentagon benefits by having two distinct architectural approaches to choose from.
Okay, let's pivot away from strategic tension for a moment and look at two high-impact stories at the AI frontier, one with immediate commercial application and one with long-term scientific breakthroughs. We've seen the market decisively pivot to short-form, vertical content, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Reels. That's where the marketing dollars are. And Google is directly addressing this with Veo 3.1.
The commercial importance of vertical video can't be overstated. It's the dominant format for mobile. Previously, if you generated a great horizontal video with AI, a creator would have to manually crop it, and you lose context or quality.
So Veo 3.1 is designed to bypass that tedious workflow.
Exactly. The key upgrade is the ability to instantly turn portrait images into full vertical videos, framed perfectly for platforms like YouTube Shorts, without any manual manipulation.
They're tailoring the output to fit the distribution channel. What are the technical details that elevate this new version?
The focus is on consistency and resolution. Previous models struggled with what's called object permanence.
A character's shirt changing color mid-scene?
Right. Veo 3.1's Ingredients to Video feature, which generates clips from up to 3 reference images, now has enhanced consistency tracking. It ensures characters, objects, and backgrounds maintain the same appearance across different scenes.
That consistency is vital for narrative integrity and for professional marketing.
It's what makes AI-generated content commercially viable. And on top of that, they've addressed the resolution bottleneck. They've moved beyond 1080p by adding 4K upscaling.
And Google is clearly aiming for maximum rapid adoption by integrating these tools across their ecosystem.
They are fast-tracking access. They're bringing these vertical video tools directly into the Gemini app, YouTube Shorts, and the YouTube Create app. It dramatically lowers the barrier to entry for the creator economy.
Okay, from the immediate commercial frontier, let's shift to the deep scientific frontier. This news from UK startup Basecamp Research, using AI to design new medicine.
Nice.
It sounds less like software and more like foundational scientific discovery.
This is one of the most exciting long-term stories we've covered. Basecamp Research, in partnership with Nvidia, developed their Eden family of AI models. And their approach is fascinating. Instead of training the AI on just human data,
They trained it on evolutionary data from over 1 million species across 28 countries.
they are literally tapping into billions of years of nature's problem-solving wisdom. They're asking the AI, how did evolution solve this complex biological problem?
And this approach is yielding breakthroughs in 2 huge areas: safer gene editing and the antibiotics crisis.
Let's start with gene editing. The current gold standard, CRISPR, is revolutionary, but it involves cutting the DNA strand, which has inherent risks.
Off-target edits, side reactions.
Exactly. The Eden AI designed a brand new type of gene editing tool that can insert therapeutic DNA without cutting the double helix. This is a massive safety breakthrough.
Is it effective enough to be viable?
The preliminary lab tests are highly promising. In tests for diseases like muscular dystrophy and hemophilia, over 63% of the AI-designed non-cutting treatments showed functionality. That's a huge deal for a method that's inherently safer.
And the second application addresses a ticking clock for global public health: the rise of superbugs.
Yes, the antibiotic resistance crisis is a failure of conventional drug discovery. Eden created a new portfolio of antibiotic candidates, drawing on its vast library of evolutionary strategies.
And the results.
Astounding. 97% of those candidates proved effective in lab settings against dangerous, multi-drug-resistant superbugs that our current drugs can't touch.
So the why it matters here isn't just about speed, it's about accessing a completely new design space.
It just emphasizes the profound value of teaching AI to learn from the scale and depth of natural history. It offers a genuine speed advantage in addressing critical public health crises where the clock is rapidly running out.
Truly foundational science. Let's wrap up now with a few final, high-signal takeaways and industry notes that impact the professional landscape immediately.
Okay, let's start with IP and celebrity rights. Specifically, the precedent being set by Matthew McConaughey. He's actively trademarking his video image and his voice print to prevent AI cloning.
This feels like a defensive move that thousands of other high-profile people will have to replicate immediately.
It's going to become standard operating procedure. This doesn't necessarily prevent the technical creation of a deepfake, but it makes using them in commerce legally prohibitive and much easier to enforce.
It's injecting a crucial legal layer of protection.
Exactly. It's an attempt to restore control to the originator.
Okay, shifting to enterprise adoption, we got a remarkable statistic from McKinsey & Company.
This really speaks to the depth of enterprise penetration. The McKinsey CEO confirmed the consulting giant has 25,000 AI agents among its 60,000-person workforce.
25,000.
And their plan is to pair every single human consultant with at least one AI agent. When the world's most elite consulting firm has a workforce that is nearly 40% digital agents, it is the clearest possible indicator that AI augmentation is not a pilot program. It's a mandatory driver of future productivity.
And a quick snapshot of developer tools that are pushing the boundaries.
We saw Anthropic introduce Anthropic Labs, a new internal division focused on rapid prototyping. And the critical news is who's leading it. Instagram co-founder Mike Krieger.
That signals a powerful commitment to prioritizing rapid, iterative product development.
It's about moving fast from research to commercial application.
And Google continues to push its domain-specific models, especially in healthcare.
Yes. Demonstrating their commitment to vertical AI. They're updating MedGemma, their medical AI, to better interpret complex scans like CTs and MRIs. And they're releasing MedSR, a specialized speech-to-text tool for medical transcription.
Finally, a note on the raw speed of development that should capture every developer's attention. The internal story from Anthropic about their own engineering process.
This detail highlights the potential for exponential acceleration. Boris Cherny, the creator of Anthropic's Claude Code, revealed that their new internal Claude Cowork feature,
a complex collaboration tool,
was built entirely using the agentic coding tool itself, Claude Code.
AI writing the code for AI, and how long did that take?
Just 1.5 weeks. That level of acceleration in engineering productivity is a leading indicator for the future of software development. It suggests the rate of product release is about to become nonlinear.
What an incredible density of news today. Let's bring it all back to the 3 core themes we started with.
We've seen Google's strategic pivot fully complete at the application layer, validated by that Apple deal.
We also analyzed the infrastructure demand, creating these massive, unbelievable energy needs with Meta's $600 billion commitment.
And that demand is being layered over by geopolitical reality, which is hardening the high-end chip supply chains, as we saw with the China-Nvidia paradox.
That synthesis is key.
And as you, the executive, developer, or investor, synthesize all this, I want to leave you with one provocative thought that connects all these threads.
Okay.
We are seeing a powerful dual push. On one side, you have Apple demanding extreme, user-specific, highly personalized, and absolutely private intelligence.
To push for ultimate personalization and security.
Exactly. And on the other side, you have Meta demanding unprecedented resource-intensive scale that requires new nuclear power plants and hundreds of billions in physical infrastructure.
So the core question is?
The core question for the next era of AI is this. Can the user's desire for the ultimate personalized private AI service ever truly be satisfied without collapsing the massive resource-intensive physical infrastructure necessary to power it? This inherent tension between privacy, personalization, and planetary physical infrastructure that defines the next and arguably most challenging era of the AI race. Something to mull over.
A perfect note to end on. Thank you for joining us for this strategic deep dive. We'll catch you next time for more insights on AI Unraveled.
That wraps up today's briefing. The signal for today is control. Apple wants the intelligence of Gemini without ceding control of the user experience. China wants the power of AI without ceding control of its supply chain to Nvidia. And Meta wants to control its own destiny by building its own power plants. The technology is expanding, but the walls around it are getting higher. Before we go, a reminder for the leaders listening. Are you drowning in dense legal text? Gemini is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page healthcare or energy mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Whether you are navigating Bill C-27, Canada, or the CMS 0057F interoperability rule, USA, our AI agents decode the liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamine.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Please subscribe and share. Until tomorrow, keep unraveling the future.